Talking back to the tangent, we are back again talking about D&D, and in the room we still have Nick and Jay, and then obviously the rest of us. You guys don't care about the rest of us.
Jabronis.
So, like, the way I got to that dog thing kind of was like a series of thoughts that, like, I first was like, could I be a cleric that holds a knife?
By the way, I'm already coming up with the rules for your spellcasting dog. By the way, in my head.
Okay.
That's how I think.
I can't think of. I don't think any of the clerics can't use a knife.
So,
they can all
like,
use knives.
Well, yeah, it's
Could
a
I-
simple weapon. Everybody gets a
No,
simple
but,
weapon.
like, so, are
Okay.
clerics the only ones that can use healing type?
First of all, I want to change your opinion on what a cleric is. A cleric is not a robe-wearing, sits at the top of an altar and talks to a bunch of people type of, like, priest or whatever.
Oh, they can be.
They can be, sure. But
Okay.
typically in D&D, a cleric is a heavy armor-wearing, mace-wielding, heavy crossbow on his back.
Yeah.
Shows somebody their holy symbol to their god, and if the orc just screams back at them in response, he pulls out his spiked mace and hits him in the face with it.
The way I usually explain them is
Okay.
they are frontline support.
They are frontline support in D&D.
What class is the healing class? Like,
Cleric?
cleric.
Yeah.
Cleric is the healing class?
And I'm gonna go
Generically
back,
speaking, they're the healing class.
I'm going to go back to what I said before. There is, in D&D, not a place for somebody who just sits back and does nothing but heals.
Yeah,
There's not a place for that.
In 3.5, it's arguable that there wasn't really a place for that either. You could totally run with, like, I was in plenty of campaigns where our clerics were combatants or archers or just just guys who did blast
We just
spells
happened to have-
and just healed on occasion if someone really needed it.
Yeah, we just
And that
have,
was it.
and most of the older campaigns that I ran were the older systems. We just happen to have people that happen to have cure spells.
Mm-hmm. The most recent big campaign I ran, which started with James over here and then eventually implemented Tim, the healer in the group, quote unquote, the healer in the group was a bard. And the bard class is very notoriously a support class. You know, they help people attack better, they help people do their skill checks better, but they also heal. And he was playing this, his name was Charles, he played this bard as a healer. And he was very bored quite a bit of the time. He'd fire his crossbow sometimes. If an enemy got next to him, he'd use his rapier. He was bored because he didn't need to heal every single round. And there were even times where frontline members would take damage, but the amount of damage that they would take is less than his heal would heal for, so why use it?
And my character's AC was so high.
Well, yeah,
But
you barely took damage.
Once I joined the group and you started setting out some of those, player tip videos.
Yeah.
And especially that
Well,
one.
and I was getting to that. Like Charles eventually watched a video on how to bard well. And once he did that, he started doing things like using spell, like animate objects.
Animate objects is so great.
He would have this, he would bring out a pocket of like 10 coins, like 10 copper coins. He would animate that, and then he would attack with it like little bees, and each little coin would do like a d4 plus his mod damage, which is a ton of damage. By the way.
When you have 10 of them, yeah, it's
Exactly. So he became, instead of a healer, an actual support character. He would start using ways to make his party hit better. He would start adding temporary hit points to people, which is healing on top of their hit points. So once he figured out how to be a support character as opposed to a healer, he had so much more fun. He was way more effective. And that's when we realized there's no healer needed.
Yeah. You also turned him to animated stone, so
Yeah,
the
but
only big thing that I think
maybe I'll tell that funny
he
story.
was trying to get into like battlefield control and decided to sleet storm that hallway, which I mentioned last episode, which screwed up everybody, and he just refused to take it down. He was just like, I'm just leaving this sleet storm here.
Yeah, he just sat back laughing. That was kind of on the downward spiral of that campaign, though. He and at least one other player just kind of stopped caring. They're like, we're going to do whatever we want. So it happens.
Are there limitations to are there class limitations for spells?
Yes.
Yes.
Each class has its own spell list.
So, like, a mage can't learn healing spells?
Via your example, yes. Via the rules themselves, I'm pretty sure mages have healing spells. But I see what you're saying.
Like mages can't learn, like, cleric spells or, like, bard spells.
No, there are some spells that go cross-class.
There are a lot of spells that
But there are exclusive ones.
Yes. For example, Eldritch Blast. Eldritch Blast is a cantrip that is very common for warlocks to use. They can cast it every turn. It does damage at range, whatever. But if I'm not mistaken, it is a warlock only spell.
Yeah, that's one of their exclusives.
Yeah. There are things you can do to put it on other classes, but we're not going to get into that detail. It is a warlock only spell.
But yeah, there are some spells that are exclusives to their class, like Vicious Mockery is an exclusive of the Bard.
Yep. Oh yeah, Vicious Mockery. Charles used that quite a bit actually.
Yeah.
Sacred Flame.
Especially before we realized it was not AoE.
Yeah.
he used Vicious Mockery on an entire pile of kobolds. And I'm like, yeah, they all die from your insult. Wait, that's not AoE. Crap.
Like Sacred Flame, I believe, is exclusive to the Cleric.
But
Thorn Whip is exclusive to the Druid.
Okay.
Again.
Yes, to answer your question, some are unique, most are not.
Yeah, but there are ways to get those elsewhere. Like, I think the Bard had a feat that he could take that he was able to take.
It was just a class. It was a class perk where he could get 2 spells from any spell.
Magical Secrets. That's one of the things that makes the Bard such a powerful character. Like, I always hear people give Bard crap, especially people who don't know the game. Like, if they're just getting introduced, and it's like, why would I want to play a Bard? Because the Bard is one of the most powerful things you can play. They can do anything.
So, Devin, you got a question.
You were talking about he asked his animal question, and you were talking about druids and how they can be all the animals.
Yep.
Oh.
Can I be like a chimera druid?
What do you mean? You mean an actual chimera, or chimera in the sense that you can be whatever you want?
Like, I can change like my arm into like a bear's arm and my leg into like something else.
That'd be cool. I'm gonna put that under the same thing I put his dog mage of. No, there are no concrete rules about it, but being the experienced DM that I am, I would find a way to make it happen if that's what you want.
The shifter race in combination with the alter self spell, we could probably pull something off of that.
Okay.
Like what you
at
were
the very
telling
least,
me?
make him wear like a magical amulet that if it gets taken away, he doesn't have the ability to do it.
That's fine with me.
I mean, there are ways to go
That
about
sounds
this
like
to make it
an
ridiculous.
interesting.
This is the advantage you get with experienced DMs.
Yeah.
We will find a way to make it
Yeah.
That's
happen.
why I was just like, I feel like he'll make it happen for me.
Yep.
So that's why I was like smiling before I even asked the question, because I was just like, he's gonna say yes.
Like if someone played
You can certainly try.
the shifter race and they went wizard and specialized in transmutation, you can get all kinds of weird combinations out of that. Like,
Now that gave me like 2 more questions.
questions.
We might not get to the
He's got
story.
this like branching tree of questions.
it's a feat tree of questions.
So before we do those questions, did we want to start with? We're already 20 minutes in. Start with our funny D&D stories.
Yes, please. I want to
Okay.
hear some.
Let's do
I mean,
that.
you can switch it out and say a story and then ask a question and.
So
Go like that.
obviously Tim, myself, and James have stories because we've played a lot of D&D. I want to know if the other half of the room has at least seen something D&D related that you thought was really funny. Like, for example, Marlon Wayans in the D&D movie. Come on, that was hilarious.
That was a D&D movie. Do we really want to go there?
There's an actual movie.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's several.
Jeremy Irons, the voice of Scar, is the bad guy in the movie.
You're kidding.
Honestly, I think in my opinion, the best official D&D movie is the third one, Book of Vile Darkness, and it's not good.
So what?
But
do
I
you
think it's the
rate
best
them?
one.
What would you rate them?
So there's a good movie that he was kind of alluding to there. There's a series called The Gamers. The first movie is just called The Gamers. The second movie is called Darkness Rising, which I believe is my favorite one. Where the
second one
movie,
was really good.
yeah, where the movie in essence is a bunch of people just sitting around playing D&D, but when they go into their like actual session, it cuts to them in their characters doing their thing.
And I love in the first one where like the barbarian wasn't at the session, so when they jumped into game, the barbarian's just standing in the background with his head down, just like puppet walking behind everybody.
Yep.
Just
in the second one, there's the one guy who played the female sorceress.
Yeah.
So in game, he had the blonde wig on and like kept hitting on chicks, and the DM had to keep being like, "You're a girl, remember?" But yeah, so for movies, there's that. I'm just curious if there's anything you guys have seen or heard, anything DM or D&D related that you thought was really fun.
I mean, Devin sat through a few of our sessions that had some pretty comical moments.
Yeah, it was mostly just you guys were always very distracted. You know, there wasn't a lot of actual content happening, but
Agreed.
like honestly, it was always a lot of fun to sit in on a session where Huck was there because it's kind of just like a thing in our group to give him shit.
Yeah.
And
No, never. We don't ever.
there's times where he makes it easy, and there's times where he makes it hard. But
I'm
we
gonna
find
give that
a way
guy a little
either
bit of
way.
credit because we give him so much.
Yeah,
credit.
he's got thick skin.
He does.
He does.
Yeah.
But
So to
yeah,
preface
I don't
who
really
Huck
have-
is, you met his wife in the Disney episode.
That's right.
So it's her husband, and he will be on an episode. I have something planned for him to come on, so
Oh,
he
that
will
we're
be on
breaking
an
the
episode.
rule.
Yeah, I already
He's
explained
no
it to
longer
him.
banned from the
He's
the podcast.
still a friend.
He's still a
include him.
friend. I just like giving him crap. That's why I brought his wife on first, because it really kind of upset him that we brought her on instead of him. But
Right.
anyway,
We've had our fun with it. It's
we've
time
had
to
our
let
fun.
him
It's
out.
over. He can come on. But anyway, so sorry. I just wanted to preface who Huck was.
Right. I don't know if I really have too many specific moments that I can think of. Honestly, you took me off guard when you asked me that question.
So the one that I think you remember, we made a comment in the first one.
Was
The shooting of the fire.
that was
extinguisher.
Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh,
So
I
we
would
were
love
playing-
to hear this story.
We were playing Vampire.
I'll let James tell the story because
We were playing Vampire the Masquerade.
Than...
Tim was our DM for that, or their game master, storyteller, or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And so, Vampire the Masquerade is basically a D10 system that you are. There are different types of vampires, and we live in this world. And the masquerade part of it is, we still have to live in the world with humans and not show them who we are. Like we
Pretend
can't.
like you're not vampires.
Right. So we had to go out in the world and do stuff. Well, we ended up getting into a fight. Now, in Vampire the Masquerade, Tim said this right off the bat. If you get into a battle, you are doing something wrong. If you end up fighting in this game, you are doing
that's
something
not that's
wrong.
not a 100% hard and fast rule, but it is like 90% of the
Because-
time. If you're getting into a fight, you probably screwed up somewhere.
Because
Just
Vampire
like
the
Call of
Masquerade,
Cthulhu.
Vampire the Masquerade is very role playing heavy, or RP heavy, as us call it in the game.
Darkness, call it.
We call it RP, but it's role playing. It's like we do a lot of discussions back and forth with each other, with NPCs and stuff like that. Well, we were in a bar. We ended up getting into a humongous fight, and none of us were doing damage because I did something stupid and didn't bring my weapon with me. Because we weren't. So we were supposed to. We were supposed to be going in there to discuss something.
And
No need to defend. I just want to hear what happened.
to preface this, where they were was a place called an Elysium, and every vampire controlled area has an Elysium, which is the safe zone. It is the vampire safe zone. You're not allowed to fight there. You're not allowed to hurt people there. Like that's where the prince does all of his thing, and so it was the safe zone. So he didn't bring any of his weapons to the safe zone.
So Nick happened to have a gun. We were in this bar area fighting, and we had this big blob style vampire.
Yeah, they were called Blood Brothers.
And he was thinking in his brain that if I shoot the fire extinguisher, it'll freeze this blob and we can go hit it and it'll shatter. Well,
Solid logic. Okay.
solid logic, yes, but
I think he was expecting it to explode. Actually,
so he asked
I
Tim. He
remember
says,
him
"Can I
saying
shoot the
that.
fire extinguisher?" Tim's looking at him like,
And I tried to explain to him what exactly would happen, because
Which is, by the way, very generous. I don't think I
Yeah.
would have gone that far.
well, he had the common sense merit.
I had that thought.
So
too.
the common sense merit basically is something that a lot of it recommends. The game recommends that new players take it, and
Okay.
it basically gives the storyteller license to go, don't do that or do this.
Interesting. I've never played Masquerade. I didn't know Common Sense Merit existed, but I like it. I
Yeah.
love the concept. Go on.
So you left out the part where the Blood Brother was currently on fire.
Oh,
"Oh yeah, it was on fire
Oh,
because
that's
me
the
and-
important part.
because
of the
you
story.
and another character-
You and Huck's wife were sitting behind the bar, making Molotov cocktails and throwing it at the Blood Brother.
This is really important to the story where he shoots a fire extinguisher.
Yes.
yeah,
So the blob creature is on fire, and
I forgot about that.
And Abby's Gangrel with claws is doing like hardcore damage to this thing up front, trying not to catch herself on fire. And then Huck walks up with his character and goes, and I shoot the fire extinguisher, and it shoots flame retardant all over the Blood Brother. So he's not on fire anymore.
Oh.
Right.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that was just one of those moments, and we'll never let him live that down.
But we won't let him live it down because of the coup de grace. His next turn,
he did something.
he shot the fire extinguisher again.
Right.
What? Wait.
His explanation afterward was, I thought it would do something different. And I was like, it did do something different. It did nothing because it was empty.
That's right. I was remembering when he shot it again. That's right. Because, yeah. I couldn't remember all those details. Yeah, he shot
If
it
you guys
again.
can see the look on Nick's face right now, it's absolutely amazing.
Alright.
I got nothing.
I got questions. I wrote them down.
Oh, look at
Okay.
that.
So one
It's the
story
funniest
down.
moments in here.
Oh, I thought we were doing one in
Well,
between.
yeah, well,
Okay, question in between? You got it.
I like that.
Okay, well, first I think that my dog will probably be a bard
Okay.
because I want to be able to learn two things from whatever.
Okay.
Learn to
I think-
things from
I
whatever.
wanna know.
Dogs can sing, right?
He wants to be able to get at least 2 spells from whatever class he wants.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay.
Whenever you're creating a character, can you make one of your stats go in the negative to put into another stat?
Okay, so again, there are several philosophies on how to make your starting stats. For this example, I'm going to use something called point buy. And what that means is you start at 10 on all your base stats.
8.
Do you technically start at 8?
You technically start at 8 for everything, yeah.
Okay, you technically start at 8 for everything. Anything below 10, though, I would say is considered in the negative.
Yeah.
10 is considered the human average for things.
Mhm.
You know, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, strength.
So,
blah,
like,
blah, blah.
an average NPC that you see in the world will have 10s across the board.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can take these stats lower than 10, lower than 8. Hell, technically in point buy, I don't think you're actually allowed to go lower than 8, are you?
No, there are a lot of custom
Okay,
rules that I've seen
okay,
that allow you
but
to do it, but no, you can't
technically in point buy,
the
you can't
rules.
go lower than 8. And an 8 strength, for example, would give you a -1 strength modifier. So if you're trying to arm wrestle, get a -1. You're trying to climb like a cliff with strength, you get a -1.
Okay,
and that's with
that's-
an 8.
That's what I was kind of thinking, like, if I could screw over, like, 2 of my stats to max out another
I guess,
one.
so short answer long, you can min-max.
Okay.
Anyway,
He looks a little proud.
That
Just saying.
was what I wanted to know.
so I'm going to go with funny story for me. I was considering doing the Charles the Bard gets turned to stone and then gets reanimated as animated stone Charles the Bard. Well, technically it was Steve. His name was Steve the Bard.
Yeah.
His name was Steve the Bard.
While that NPC was really
Stone
fun,
Cold Steve.
while that NPC was really fun,
Nice.
and I know you guys as a
Stone Cold
player
Steve
base
Charles.
had really had a lot of fun
Yeah,
in
we
that
did.
scenario. Me as a DM, it kind of went the way I was expecting. And again, while fun, was not unexpected. I want to go with something unexpected here. I had a party of people going through an enchanted forest. This forest was occasionally getting hit by deforesters and a nearby village. They'd go in, they would cut down some trees and bring them back and use said trees. Not a terrible thing, but the dryads who lived in this forest were not a big fan of it. So, when the party was attempting to move through the forest, they encountered these dryads. Dryads, by the way, who don't really know, are like animated forest spirits. They encountered these dryads, were not really able to detect them before being set upon by their magic. And their magic didn't want to like control them outright, didn't want to do damage to them, but their magic was just a suggestion of, hey, you should really spend a good like 3/4 of the remaining day here just planting more trees. We have some tree seeds for you, some seedlings, saplings, if you will. You should go plant some more to extend this forest. No, I just did a simple little magical spell on them that they had to resist with their will. Half the party, I believe we had 6 people, right? Because I think it was half and half, straight up. Maybe we only had 4.
There might have only been 4 of us.
Let's go with 4. So I don't remember exactly. I'm not going to go.
I think there was 4 of us.
Okay, so we had 4 people. 2 of them resisted. 2 of them did not. The 2 that did not said, you know what? We really should stick around, plant some of these saplings, extend the forest a little more, spend the entire rest of the day doing this instead of traveling. The other 2 were like, you're crazy. We need to get from point A to point B. We need to keep going. So I had the mind-controlled players roll a perception, or not perception, persuasion, sorry. Roll a persuasion check on the non-mind-controlled players, which they succeeded. So they're like, okay, now all of us should plant some trees. Well, shortly thereafter, the mind-controlled players, the ones who failed the will save for the spell, broke free. They made their will save and broke free of the spell. Well, the people that they convinced to plant trees now still wanted to plant trees. So then, Group A is now like, all right, let's move on. But Group B is like, no, we still need to plant trees. So then they rolled persuasion checks to re-persuade everybody, which then succeeded. So now the entire group is stuck killing an entire day in this forest, just planting saplings and seedlings.
Not even magically compelled at this point.
Not even magically compelled at this point. And I'm sitting here as a DM going, did this just fucking happen?
Yes, it did. Yeah, so we spent a good 30 or 40 minutes of our session planting trees.
You guys lost an entire day, which, to make a very complicated story simple, let an army move in ahead of you, which you then had to sneak in through.
Yeah.
But that had you not been stuck in this forest, you would have gotten there ahead of.
Yep.
That sounds like an anime filler episode.
Like, it's exactly what it was.
Yeah,
and I'm sitting here going, I can't believe that just happened. And my players are even sitting here laughing their butts off because they're like, persuasion check. Way higher than your insight. Persuasion. Way higher than your insight.
That's amazing.
Okay, let's plant trees.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We are planting trees.
Yeah, right? I fully expected that entire encounter to just degrade into combat, like you guys usually do. But that never happened. You never saw the dryads. You never, fought off the spell as soon as it was cast on you to be able to see what's going on. And then you just organically persuaded the rest of the party to plant trees.
Yep. That was good times.
As a DM, I found that hilarious.
Alright, so...
Question.
These 2 kind of go together. I wrote more.
Okay.
So, but I didn't even ask one of the other ones from earlier, so we got a lot. Do you have an inventory or bag kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Each
person's
you have
individual.
equipment that you have on you. Yeah.
Short answer is yes. You also technically have a carry limit that is based on your strength.
Yeah. So you can only carry things.
Each item has a weight?
Yeah.
Yes. Every item has a weight.
Got it. And what are the limitations on what you're initially equipped with?
That is spelled out in whatever class / background you have.
Yeah.
Let's say, for example, you are a fighter. A fighter is going to say that you have this armor, your choice of these couple of weapons. Your background, let's just going to say, is noble. And as being a noble, it's also going to say you have this much coinage on you, as well as these heirlooms that come from your family. All of those things have weight, including the gold.
So
yeah.
Yep.
If I wanted to have some kind of really ridiculous item on me, that wouldn't necessarily impact the game, but it might in some very niche situation. Would that be possible?
Okay, so I'm going to use
trinkets.
I'm going to use an important rule here. Full disclosure with your DM is necessary.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are you talking about?
So if I
remember, it's not you versus
No, I'm
the
not
DM.
sure. I don't have a
trying to
specific
help.
yet. I don't have a specific
Okay,
yet.
so
I just mean
Tim's right, trinkets.
So yeah, there is a section of the PHP called trinkets, which I'm probably gonna have you guys roll on next session because the game says everyone's supposed to start with a trinket. I forgot to have you guys roll.
Okay.
Or pick, because you can roll or pick. But it's a list of 100 random objects
Yep.
and you just have one of these on you at the beginning of the game, and you might introduce it into your story. You might, be like, I picked up this trinket, blah blah blah, and I don't know what it does, and then you can work with your DM to make it do something if you want.
And in without context, they're completely pointless. Like a rag doll, or I don't know.
See, I would set that on fire.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, your character starts with it though, which means your character already has it for some reason, and you can write in whatever reason that was. Like, I'm going to use the ragdoll example here. Let's say I roll ragdoll on my 6 intelligence barbarian. Why does he have a ragdoll on him? I don't know. At some point, I'm just going to say he was walking through a town. He bumped into some man. He apologized to the man. The man said, no problem, whatever. We're just going to go on with our day. And his daughter was sitting there like, it's okay, Mr. Giant Dumb Orc. Here, have my dolly. And he just takes it and throws it into his bag. Bam! Now he's got a doll on him, and I just made up why he has it.
Okay.
I think the only game I got to play in where I actually had a trinket on me, because it's one of those rules in the book that everyone just sort of glosses over.
Yep.
But in my first actual 5e game that I played in, I ended up having a deed to a property in an unknown land.
Neat.
Right. And it was near the beginning of 5e, and we were playing in Tyler's game. And, me and Tyler knew a lot of the lore for the world that we were in, and the Second Sundering had just happened, and a bunch of random continents just shown up on the world. So he was just like, this is a random deed to a piece of property that's on a continent that hasn't been on the world in several centuries, but it's back now, and, I spent a lot of time in-game researching this deed, trying to figure out where the hell it was, and
did spend a lot of time.
I ended up selling the rights to the property back to the king of this continent in exchange for some money every year, on a yearly basis. So I had this constant source of income, which helped my character start building his tiny little empire on the Sword Coast.
His little army of kobolds.
So that answers the question of I can have a random item.
Yes.
Okay.
Funny story. Who wants next one? Timber James.
It's all the same to me.
Okay. So this one's actually pretty quick, but it was very humorous, and it is a Justin story. It's one of his shorter stories, and he was playing in a 3-5 game. They were all first level, and unbeknownst to him or anyone else, they get sent into a cave with a dragon, right? And there's like, right, we're first level characters, we're gonna fight this dragon, I guess. And the DM had the dragon stay asleep, even though, according to all the rules and stuff, the dragon always knows what's going on inside of his cave.
Was this a prefabricated?
Pre-made?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
The Dungeon Master made this all up.
Okay.
So he makes this up, and the according to the rules, the dragon should wake up and be all like, I know what's going on. But he had to stay asleep because he wanted them to get to the dragon, do some stuff, and eventually the dragon wake up and go, you tried to steal my gold and blah blah blah, and now you work for me. And that was going to be their quest giver for like the rest of the game, was this dragon. But Justin's character walks up to it and goes, so we're supposed to be getting paid to kill this dragon, and it's asleep? Well, I'm a first level wizard. I have this dagger. Coup de grace.
Okay.
The coup de grace rules in 3.5 were if something you attacked was, incapacitated, they were unconscious or couldn't fight back, you could do a coup de grace, and there was a whole bunch of rules around it, and whatever you coup de grace has to make a save, and if they don't make it, they immediately die.
Yeah,
and
they changed that to make coup de grace a static number now.
Right, and so the DM, not even thinking about it, is just like, it's a dragon. All it has to do is roll a 2, and it's going to beat your stupid coup de grace check. And so he rolls in front of everybody and rolls a 1, and he stands up, and he just goes, everyone level your characters to 7, I'll be outside. And he just walks out.
Way funnier story than mine.
That's hilarious.
Alright.
Questions?
Questions.
Oh, yeah.
He just like Scrolls.
Yep. What I love now is these questions are all just related to him making his dog bark.
Yes.
Sort of. I mean,
there is a part where it literally says dog.
I can totally him and a bunch of friends doing the barking jingle from the commercial.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, are there critical attacks?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And what is that based off of?
So when you roll to attack, you roll a d20. If you roll a 20, you do a critical hit. If you...
not with your bonuses. It's called a natural 20 if the dice shows a 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on every attack, you have at least a 5% chance to get a critical attack.
Is there a way to raise your critical percent?
There are certain ways to do it.
Fighter, there's a fighter class.
Champion fighter, you can get it moved to 19 or 20. Hexblade Warlock can do 19 or 20.
Okay.
I think Bladesinger Wizard has a way to move it to 19 to 20.
I still have yet to play Wizard. We already covered that last episode.
And there's a couple of ways to move it to 19 to 20, and then Champion Fighter will eventually get 18 to 20.
Yeah.
Is there a spell that would temporarily grant that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Trying to think of one, but I can't remember.
But I would love to invent
maybe Foresight?
one. I would love to invent one.
Maybe
Like
Foresight, but that's a 9th level spell.
Yes, we'll do
also,
it.
I love homebrewing stuff, which, for those who don't know, homebrew basically means inventing something that doesn't already exist and just trying to make it as balanced as you can, but most of the time it's not.
Yeah,
So,
homebrew is basically
make
code
it
word
OP.
for broken.
in addition to that,
Sometimes, yeah.
what
Now I want to make that spell.
what percentage increase does a critical attack grant? Is it double? Is it
I got
1.5?
So every weapon attack will deal some amount of dice damage. We were talking last episode how a sword does a d8, for example. But then after you roll that d8, you also apply your strength bonus, which sometimes, I'm just going to say is 3 in this example.
Mm-hmm.
So what a critical does is it will take that d8 and say that you can add an extra d8. In rules terms, any dice that are roll double that many dice.
Yeah.
So if you get a d8 plus 4, you're going to get 2d8 plus 4. If a rogue is attacking and they're getting their sneak attack bonus, which is sometimes like 4d6 in addition to their d4 dagger, they're going to get 4d6 plus their d4 dagger plus an extra 4d6 plus their d4 dagger plus their strength bonus 1 time. So any static numbers on a critical attack stay static. Any dice numbers, you get double that number of dice. Now, this is just 5th edition specific. Every edition has their own critical rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in 3.5, it was you doubled all what they called weapon damage, which sneak attack didn't qualify as weapon damage.
I know.
But there were
doubling sneak attack in 5th edition is amazing.
Yeah. So there were other random things like Ayajutsu that did count as weapon damage.
Yep.
So being able to double your Ayajutsu got really dumb.
Fun fact: it was a monk thing.
So, are there what determines attack priority?
What do you mean priority? As in
Like
who
who
attack
goes
first?
first? Is it a
Initiative?
turn kind of
Yeah.
thing?
When combat starts, you roll something called initiative, which basically means how fast your character decides to do something.
Okay.
Everybody in the battlefield, every enemy, every friendly, will roll an initiative roll, and everybody on their character sheet has a big block that says initiative. So you roll a d20, because like we said, you roll a d20 for everything. You take your plus to initiative and add it to your d20 roll, and then you write down everybody's initiative roll, and then you just go from highest to lowest. And then once you go from highest to lowest, you just start at the top again.
Okay. And it's turn based?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, D&D
Okay.
is actually turn-based. Like, it's not... What's the term I want? It's not a live action, everybody acting simultaneously. It is a turn-based thing. You take a turn. James takes a turn. I take a turn.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, I don't know. I think I'm asking some good questions.
Oh, absolutely.
Not just about the dog.
No, you're right. Do not feel bad about these questions at all.
No, don't.
I wish you were this interested in everything we talk about.
Well, see, the difference is, like, I was awake, like, 3 hours before I came here instead of the usual 5 minutes.
Okay.
Jeez.
So,
By the way, I've already came up with an amulet which gives a canine the ability to speak common, as well as forego semantic components of spells.
oh, I was wanting to know, I just wanted to have telepathy.
You cannot do semantic components with telepathy.
I
Semantic
just want to be
being
able
what
to
you have to
communicate
speak.
with people.
No,
Okay, well, if
verbal.
you- yeah.
Verbal components.
Well, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah.
I kept saying semantic. I meant
Oh,
verbal.
you can't do
I've
verbal.
been drinking a bit.
Okay.
Sue me.
But what about, is telekinesis a thing in this?
So
Can
there
it be?
are spells, for example, Mage Hand, which says.
Or the actual spell telekinesis.
Yeah, I know, but I was going to use the lower level one.
Good.
Yeah, whatever. There are spells. Remember, you're using spell slots to do things, not just
Right.
whatever you want with MP. But there are things like Mage Hand or telekinesis that you can just move things. It's a spell.
And I could use the bard thing to get
I
that, right?
can almost guarantee bards get telekinesis. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure Mage Hand is on their list already too.
Yeah.
Oh, I just assumed that would be exclusive to mages.
It's
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Okay.
Remember, mage is not a class.
Oh, mage is not a class.
Wizard is. Sorcerer is. Warlock
Wizard
is. Yeah.
So if someone in the world were to say mage, they might be referring to a warlock, wizard, or sorcerer.
Hell, sometimes druid even maybe.
Yeah, depending on what kind of world you're in, they might be calling all sorts of things mage.
Clerics even maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mage is an inclusive term for sure.
So sorcerers, they summon the beings to fight for them. Is
So
that-
the different classes, like sorcerer, warlock, wizard, whatever. The really big difference between all of them is just kind of a flavor thing. For example, wizards, they get their magic power by study. They've studied their whole life. Like a 10-year-old wizard is almost not, it's not a thing. Most DMs shouldn't even allow it because a wizard studies to get their magic power. A sorcerer, on the other hand, is somebody who is born with this inherent, almost draconic power. Like they have something inside of them that they learn how to use at some point that was not learned. That was just with them their entire life. Whereas warlocks, on the other hand, they made a bargain with somebody on the other side to get their power. Like imagine a Cthulhu universe, for example. They make a bargain with a demon to get powers, and as they level up, they get more. So those kind of things are more of a flavor thing than anything else. Now, granted, all of these classes have different specializations that grant different boons and different weaknesses and strengths and everything, but that's for when you want to spend an hour just looking through the player's handbook. But all of these classes encompass the term mage.
Okay.
And then you were talking about summoning. If I was thinking about the summoning spells, wizard gets access to a lot of the summoning spells.
What do the summoning spells do, Tim?
So the different summoning spells will get you different sorts of things. So the druid has a lot of summoning spells on their list. You could summon like beasts, you could summon fae, and you can summon elementals. I think that's the three main things you can get off of the druid. Wizard and warlock both have the summon demon spells. And I believe sorcerer has the summon demon spells as well. And then you have some of the other just sort of random summon spells. Summon spells aren't like they were in 3.5 where you had summon spells of these three kinds at every level. So they're a bit more piecemeal, so they're kind of harder to find, and a lot of them operate very differently from each other. So some of them are your DM decides what actually shows up, and some of them are like you maintain concentration, and if you break it, it just disappears. And sometimes it's the thing becomes hostile toward you, which is one of the bad things about the summon demon spells.
I love summon demon.
Because if you lose concentration on the summon demon spells, suddenly you're fighting an extra demon.
Sorry, I keep asking questions. Somebody wants to tell a story.
Stop apologizing. We love
No,
it.
keep
Keep
going.
asking questions.
This is great.
And I can tell the other two people over there not talking very much are loving our answers here.
Yeah.
It's like
It's funny.
head bob back and forth.
Yeah, I just keep looking back and forth between you two and him.
So, what was I trying to say?
Gather your thoughts, James.
Okay,
Funny
yeah,
story.
go ahead.
So, it was the same campaign where we planted trees.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This whole campaign was spectacular to me. I loved it because the cohesiveness of the group was there, kind of. We all had our own agendas, but what we did was what we did.
One of the funniest things from my point of view, by the way, was I made everybody be gnomes. And I made everybody in the party be gnomes because you started in this little gnome mining town. 2 people in the party wanted to wield heavy weapons. Now imagine something that would be heavy to you, a gnome wielding. By rules, technically they get disadvantage. Imagine a small character wielding this great sword.
Right.
All right,
Or a halberd.
a halberd,
Right.
yeah. By rules, you get disadvantage to do that. But since I was running this campaign the way I was at the beginning, I disregarded those kind of rules, so I had multiple gnomes wielding heavy weapons with no disadvantage. Again, just part of DMing, having control and saying, you know what, this is better for the story. I
Yeah,
don't
just,
care.
just gonna ignore the heavy
So-
rules.
Didn't mean to step in. Go.
I don't remember the full details of where we were headed or why we were headed there. All I remember is we were walking up a path, headed somewhere to do something, and this giant elephant with goblins on it came charging at us.
I think I might have been sitting in on one of the sessions in this campaign.
Good
So
possibility.
this elephant just comes charging at us, and the DM's like, well, what do you guys do? And we're all like, well, we're going to get the hell out of the way. Well, one of the characters is like, can I Crocodile Dundee this thing?
And,
Yeah.
and does anybody remember what I say instead of no?
You can certainly try.
You can certainly try.
That's right. I've heard this
So,
story before. That's what this is.
Anybody knows the Crocodile Dundee thing is, in the movie Crocodile Dundee, there's a water buffalo in the middle of the road, and it won't move. So he gets out of the truck, and he does this little thing with his hands, and he basically puts this freaking water buffalo to sleep. And so we're like, really? And of course, DM's like, you can certainly try. So he does. He stands there in front of this elephant, charging at him, and Crocodile Dundee's this thing. So I don't remember what the save DC was on that.
It doesn't matter.
I think he rolled a nat
because
20.
at the time when he rolled that nat 20, I decided, you know what? This is going to be hilarious. I don't even think with his bonuses he could have got whatever save DC I set for it.
Right.
But since he rolled a nat 20, and I thought, you know what? This is going to be great. I let him succeed on this. I was like, you know what? Yes.
So this elephant comes to a dead stop, throws the goblins off. We end up fighting the goblins and having an elephant as a friend, who then carried us the rest of the way through this area. But we had to ditch, I don't even remember, Stampy.
Yeah, he renamed him. He renamed the elephant Stampy after the elephant in The Simpsons.
Yes.
Because at one point Bart had a pet elephant, named him Stampy.
Yeah.
So again, Steve the Bard, he's the one who did this, by the way.
Yeah.
He named the elephant Stampy. And you guys were going up into a mountain where the mountain pass was much too small for an elephant to go up.
Yeah, so we had to leave Stampy there. But, dude, it was the funniest thing, because we're all just sitting around, I was like, you seriously going to do that? He goes, I'm going to try. So he stands there and tries, rolls a nat 20, and then we're like, holy crap! We all jump up, oh my god! And we all, cheer and everything.
That's amazing.
And, we take on these goblins, no big deal, and then have a friend elephant now. It was great.
As a quick aside on nat 20s, by the way, there was one point in that campaign, different campaign, doesn't matter, same group of people.
It was on the same group of people.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Where I had set up this whole orc stronghold, for this group of people to go in, take down the orcs, get some loot and everything. I made this really awesome map for it. They go up to it, and when they get there, they kind of realize that they don't necessarily need to go inside. They don't need to go in this goblin stronghold, even though it's been alluded to them that there is stuff inside, and there's orcs, and they want to kill orcs and everything. I tried to push them in there as a DM. I tried to push them in there as hard as I could. But instead of going in, they're like, are there any mounts outside? And I said, well, orcs ride wargs. Wargs are not your standard horses. They're not really domesticated. But there is a small stable of them over here. They say, okay, well, we're going to try to ride them. I'm like, you know what? Fine. Each warg can only hold 2 people. There's 4 of you, so you need to tame 2 of them. So 2 people who I think one had animal handling, the other one I don't think did.
I didn't. No.
Yeah. So 2 people, they're like, we're going to try to calm them down and ride them.
I think I had a +1 in animal handling.
Whoever had the animal handling got it naturally. That was fine. But you got a nat 20.
Nat 20.
So they tamed them. They're like, all right, we can ride them. Okay, fine. So they get on their wargs, and I'm like, all right. So the orcs, they see you trying to escape on their mounts. They're trying to fire at you. They're trying to get in your way. And they're like, you know what? We got 2 people in each warg here. We're going to try to just maneuver our way out of here. I'm like, okay. I need more animal handling roles here. Because you're trying to maneuver them. You're trying to get through hostile environments. I need you to actually move these things in a way that will not get you killed. 2 nat 20s.
So, in real preface, me rolling a 20 is the rarest of rare. Me rolling over a 10 is the rarest of rare.
So not
I
only...
rolled 2 20s in a row.
So not only did my group of players not go in this dungeon that I spent a couple of hours prepping and making and just is going to be great and balanced and everything. Not only did they not go into it, but they stole warg mounts and got away scot-free. SOBs, I swear.
Now the thing is that now that you say that, you've said that later on, it's like, man, I wish we would have just gone in that damn place. I wanted the loot.
Me too. Anyway.
Alright. Back to Harrison.
Which guy, Harrison?
So there are different types of weapons, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Do certain weapons give advantages against other weapons?
Oof. What? How do you want to do this, Tim? I'm gonna say yes, asterisks, with asterisks meaning depends on your class.
And it also very very few, because the pole arms you could say give you an advantage against non-pole arms.
Because of distance.
But I think that's really the only big one.
It's hard to say pole arms give you advantage without sentinel.
I was more referring...
Well, I mean, the reach is still good.
Okay, so there are some weapons that have reach. They let you attack.
Okay. What's the question that you're trying to get across?
What I'm really referring to is like a percentage or static bonus to your amount of damage that you would do to whoever is wielding the other weapon.
Okay, so I think
second edition that was a thing. Second and first edition that was a thing, because you had the weapon speed tables and the weapon versus weapon tables.
Complication for the sake of complication.
That was a whole big giant mess that used to be a thing, not really a thing anymore.
The thing to keep in mind right now is I'm just going to use an extreme example of, let's say you've got this big 2-handed claymore and you are up against somebody who has a dagger. Just an example.
Okay.
You are both going to attack at the same speed. You're both going to get 1 attack per round. Okay? He with the dagger is going to do significantly less damage. It's a D4 plus his strength mod, which I'm just going to say strength mod is 3, so he's going to do 2 on average plus 3, 5 damage per round. You using a big 2-handed claymore. What's claymore even do? I don't know. D10.
2d6.
2d6. You're going to do on average 7 plus, again, I'm going to say 2. So you're going to do 9 damage per round. You're going to do a lot more damage on a face-to-face battle wielding a claymore versus somebody else holding a dagger. The thing to keep in mind, though, is somebody who's only wielding a dagger is going to try to move the battlefield in their favor. It's not necessarily about what weapon you're using in this game. It's about how you wield it.
Yeah, if you're some kind of person who tends to be in melee and you're wielding a dagger, there's probably a reason you're wielding a dagger. There's probably something else about your character that's going on.
Yeah, the weapon you're using specifically, sure, there are some that are better than others. But at first level, those better ones, they're more expensive.
Yeah.
You're going to be much higher level before you can have access to them.
Although, 2-weapon fighting, that is a thing with, if you have a dagger, they're light weapons, so you could wield one in each hand.
Yeah.
As opposed to like the Claymore, which is a two-handed weapon, so you need both hands for it. Period.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could technically, there are certain advantages of weapons, but not necessarily against other weapons, just of the weapons themselves.
Right. So I guess again, long answer long. The weapon you choose in 5th edition only matters with how you're using it.
Yeah.
Is there a way for you to have multiple turns in the same turn?
You mean multiple attacks?
Multiple attacks, yeah.
Okay, that's a much easier question. So, all of the martial classes, and by martial I mean like your physical attackers, like your barbarian, your fighter, for example. By the time they hit 5th level, they get an ability called multi-attack, which means when they take the attack action, I'm choosing to swing my claymore, you're going to get more than one attack per turn. So that's the simple answer. The complicated answer, going back to something Tim said with multiple weapons, if you have light weapons in both hands, we're going to say a short sword and a dagger just for whatever's sake, you can use your standard attack to attack with your short sword. You can then use your quote-unquote bonus action to attack with your dagger. Tons of rules that go along with this thing, and I'm going to again say this goes in the category of you need to read the rules of what you want your character to do.
Because they're basically anything you could want your character to do, there are going to be advantages and there are going to be drawbacks, and so you got to figure out your character concept and then figure out how you're going to do it, and then figure out what your advantages and your disadvantages are, so you can figure out when you're actually in the situation, when you're stuck in it, is this going to be a good situation for me or a bad situation for me, and how do I make a bad situation better?
Like hell, if you've got a short sword and a dagger, like I was just saying, if you're a low-level human, you can take a feat so that extra dagger gives you some defense so you can parry with it. Or if you're not a human and you don't have that feat, maybe you're just better off having a buckler and being able to block attacks. Like, there are so many different directions you can go rule-wise that it's better to know what you want your character to do and then look into the rules of how to do it.
So if I were a dog...
Yes. Dude, I don't even see that as funny anymore. In my head, it's already happening.
Yeah, so
It's
if
hard to laugh
if
at.
I were a dog, could I be owned by another player?
Can I own him?
Yeah. That's not even rules. That's 100% role play.
But
I mean, there are rules for how much a dog costs.
no, that's what I'm getting to. That's what I'm getting to. Can I be sold?
I mean, yeah, I could.
Again, this is 100% role play, and in my opinion, has nothing to do with rules.
So I could be sold.
Yeah.
In a sense.
I don't know who owns you.
So if another player owned me, they could sell me, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
They could make money off of that, and then I could leave wherever I was sold
You know
from.
what? This goes into a slightly different thing that I like to address. When I'm running a group of players, they are a party. I like for my party to be together, to be cohesive. I do not allow party member on party member combat. And if one person leaves the party, like for example, if you were sold to another owner, I would probably have you roll another character.
Okay.
Because if you're not part of the group, then you're not part of the adventure I'm running.
I think he's talking about running a con.
that is what I'm talking about.
That's
And
if
if that's what you're thinking, that's totally fine. And again, back to full disclosure to the DM.
Yeah, full disclosure.
Back to full disclosure to the DM. If she's trying to sell you to somebody else, and then
I
you're
wouldn't
like,
sell you to
I'm gonna run away and go
and then
back
you're gonna
to
run
the
away and
party.
come back, that's totally fine. That's all role play, man.
Because shoot,
Okay.
That's awesome.
the bard and
I got
the rogue in our one party, they were cohorts. So
Oh,
the bard would
absolutely.
get up on stage in a tavern
Yep.
and say, "Hey, I'll play for you guys, just
Yep.
a little bit of cash." And the whole time he was
And
playing,
then the rogue would just pickpocket.
and the
people.
rogue would
Yeah.
walk around and pickpocket the people in the tavern,
Okay.
and they got money and they'd split
Who is the
it.
rogue?
Emily was the rogue.
Emily, my wife, yeah.
Oh, nice.
No, that was. I mean, hell, if anyone who watches Critical Role, like the first couple of sessions of the Mighty Nine, the second campaign, Caleb is a transmutation wizard, so him and his rogue friend will run scams on people. They'll just change random things into silver or gold coins, and they'll just use them, and then an hour later they turn back into whatever the hell they used to be.
What is that? Sword of Truth.
Yeah.
The book series I used to read where they would take like piles of copper coins and turn them into gold. Done! And then like hours later, they turn back.
Right.
Yep.
I have 2 more questions before we end the podcast because we are almost at an hour.
Okay.
Okay.
Do weapons have durability?
No.
No.
You know what?
Weapon degradation is not a thing. That's why I like this game.
The technical answer...
Do you not remember us talking about Zelda?
The technical answer is yes. They have hit points. Every weapon, every material does technically have hit points. But in order to deal damage to an inanimate object, you specifically have to be trying to deal damage to.
You have to target them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there are things that could happen in game, like if you rolled a 1 to attack and your DM is that kind of DM, they might say it gets stuck in a wall or something. Like
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay,
I don't get my sword stuck in vines and trees.
Your sword or your weapon or whatever might break as a result of a thing, but it's not like in regular combat. It's not really.
So fun fact.
It's assumed that you're doing general upkeep on your weapon between.
Can you
fights.
repair it?
Oh yeah,
depending on what
as
kind of,
long as an item is repaired. Like let's say you have a non-magical just metal sword, it breaks. You take it to a blacksmith, sure, absolutely.
You can keep broken weapons too.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So fun fact: there are critical successes, like you brought up earlier. There are also critical failures.
Yeah.
It's something that I think by definition only applies to combat for your attack rolls. If you roll a natural 1. Just to go back a little bit, natural 20s do double dice damage. We talked about that. Natural 1s are an automatic failure, and depending on your DM, can also have critical failure status.
Yeah.
James here, and his
talking about
melee knight status, loved rolling natural 1s with his just sword.
Which is one of the reasons why I'm surprised he doesn't play more mages.
Dude,
and just show up and just go, all of my spells are saves. Yeah. I don't have to roll anything.
Yeah, that's a topic all on its own. But yeah, you can roll critical fails, and when critical fails happen, that's when you realize kind of what kind of DM you have.
Yeah.
Because either your DM is going to just make something up on the spot, like, oh, you swung your sword, well, you lost grip of it, and it flew across the room and then stuck in the wall. Or, oh, you were swinging your sword, well, you twisted your leg a little wrong, now you limp, and your movement takes twice as much. So your critical fails... I don't
know, you made somebody lose a leg.
I recall
I can tell that story if you want.
If I recall that story, that was a series of 1s and bad decisions.
It was. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it up now.
Yeah.
So this barbarian by the name of Abby was trying to sneak. She rolled a 1 on her sneak, which, looking back now, 1s and 20s on skill checks are not technically success fails and success crits.
I was going to actually bring that up. By the rules, rolling a 1 on attacks doesn't mean something bad has to happen. It just means you miss. But a lot of people implement these extra rules to make it more dynamic.
They even made a deck. They even made a draw deck called a critical fail.
A lot of people have made a lot of those kinds of things.
There's
tables, decks, all sorts of things.
Anyway, so this barbarian, who is very run into combat screaming barbarian, that's the kind of player she was. She was finally kind of going outside of her comfort zone. She's like, you know what? I'm going to sneak down this hill to where there's these giant bugs with, like, razor-sharp claws. I'm going to try to sneak because they don't know that I'm here. And I'm like, you know what? That's fair. That's a good tactic. She rolls her sneak roll, gets a natural 1. Say, you know what? That's not your character. I appreciate you trying to do this tactic, but you rolled a 1 on your sneak. You're going to run down this hill screaming. She goes, you know what? That's fine. So she runs down this hill at full speed screaming. All the bugs turn and they go, I'm going to attack you. So the bugs then get critical attack on her.
Oh.
She then tries to do like a Constitution save against their critical attack, gets a 1 on the Constitution save, so they severed her leg. This was several bad thing after bad thing. It wasn't just something I did.
Right.
Matter of fact, I even knew it was going to sever a limb of some kind after all of these things, and I had her roll a d4 on which limb it was.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did.
That's also a thing, because technically, in 5th edition, at the very least, the rules for losing a limb aren't there. There are things that have to be implemented by the DM. Now, it is assumed, based on certain spells in the PHB, that will regrow limbs, that you can lose limbs, but that's really on your DM to figure out how you might lose one.
Well, and if I remember that combat correctly, she was losing blood with the lost limb and still was like trying to crawl her way into combat.
She stood up, yeah, she was disadvantaging. She was doing attacks at disadvantage because she stood up on one leg. And
yep, she stood up on one leg, attacked with a disadvantage. So, had a much harder time to hit. I'm not going to go into too much detail. Attacked with disadvantage while standing on one leg. She was just going crazy ham and eventually passed out. You guys patched up her leg and gave her this little wooden hobble thing to walk on.
We had something made for her so that she could still walk.
Anyway, that's a lot of...
Yeah.
We went on a super tangent.
We could go on with D&D for hours and hours and hours. We tried to
from Harrison's face, it looks like he's still got a lot of questions.
Do you have any questions that are still podcast worthy?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more about the game, can you enchant weapons?
Yes.
Okay. Not easily, but
it's not easy. In the 3.5 days, that's shit.
3.5 it was just an everyday occurrence.
Finding +1 longswords was about as easy as finding copper coins. That was
in the current edition of 5th edition, current edition of D&D. Sorry. They've balanced the game so that magical weapons are much less relied upon.
Yeah.
Also, to more directly answer your question, it's far less common to have something non-magical be enchanted to be magical, as opposed to just finding something that was created to be magical.
Yeah. So, but you could create magic weapons. There are rules for it.
Yep.
It's not necessarily easy, and it's not necessarily cheap.
Yeah, it's expensive
and
it is
time consuming. But yeah, you could do it.
Yeah, like your character would have to take weeks, months.
Yeah,
off of the campaign.
I use personally. I use the Xanathar's rules, and they break it up based on rarity of the item into work weeks.
Okay.
And so, every player has an attack stat, right? Is that?
It's actually a more complicated question than you think.
No,
every character has a main stat in which they use to attack.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get at.
Whether it's dex based or strength based.
Dex based, strength based, or all of your magic users might have one of the mentals as one of their base stats.
Wisdom or intelligence.
Wizards are going to spend most of their time attacking if they do attack with their intelligence.
That's what I was kind of getting at. Basically.
There you go.
Yeah. But yeah, it's
one
of the existing stats.
It depends on what kind of magic user.
That's true.
What would be their main advantage, a druid?
Druid uses wisdom.
Okay.
So your 6 main stats, you have 3 physical, 3 mental. You've got your strength, dex, and constitution to be your physical.
Right.
Your mental stats are your wisdom, your intelligence, and charisma. Druids, just as an example, they use wisdom as basically their main stat for everything.
Yeah, that's their casting stat.
Yep. If your wisdom stat is 12, that's a +1 modifier. I'm not going to go into the math of that. That means basically if you were attacking with a spell as a druid, then you get to roll a d20 and you get a +1 to attack if you have a 12 wisdom.
But if you did use a weapon to attack, you would still use the regular weapon rules and use whatever applicable stat. So like if you were a druid and you wanted to attack with a scimitar, you could use dex or strength. There are weird rules around this depending on character class and subclass, and so like the Hexblade Warlock uses charisma for everything because they're broken and dumb.
Yeah.
And I love them very, very much.
Yep.
And
but again, Tim and I are DMs. We've played for many, many years. We know all of these little nuanced stats and rules for every class and subclass just because we've experienced them. But for somebody new like Harrison, when you kind of realize what class you want to play, what kind of character you want to play, you only need to look into those rules.
And the thing is, I think you're doing it the right way, which is concept before crunch.
Thank you. Yes.
So you come up with your concept. You go, this is what I want it to do. Now using the rules. How do I do it?
Yep.
Not all of this pertain to the dog, though.
What's
Well,
your,
I'm just
what's your dog's
saying,
name?
but
Dog the Bard Hunter.
That's fair.
Dog the Bard Hunter.
Wait. Is it Dog the Bard, Hunter, or is it a Bard Hunter?
Yes.
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 I want to know what are the best names that you all chose for your characters, or
Hunter-
like some of
Hunter
your
the
favorite that
dog
you personally chose for your own.
Let's do that instead of recommendations.
Oh, that's a good, because who's got a
I
recommendation?
don't
Yeah, play
technically.
D&D.
I don't technically use names that are like in any way comical.
Clear Lake is all I can remember.
Silver Lake.
Damn it! I'll never get that right.
no, my favorite character name wasn't actually in D&D. It was in a game of Vampire. His name was Alexander Randall Rhodes.
Arr.
But he was from a rich family, a college dropout, moved to Hawaii, and played the guitar on the beach for money that got turned into a vampire randomly by some guy who listened to him, and he went by the name Alex Rad.
I like that.
Okay, I can't follow that up. I'm done. Nope.
Alex Rad.
Nope.
And then he became a random private investigator, and he named his investigation company Rad Investigations.
I just played my first barbarian was named Kamal after the magic card Kamal Pit Fighter. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, most of the names that I use, I'll either go to Google, like look up Elvish names, and one will always pop out to me, and
Even
then
if
I'll
he's playing
change
a
it.
gnome, he looks up Elvish names.
Or gnomish names or orcish names. I find like a name of the race that are good, and then I find them. One will pop out to me, and then I'll change it slightly to make it.
Yeah, your
My
own
okay.
twist.
Yeah.
So I mean, Eladrin is the character that I'm playing now, and that's a female elf.
And I've used
Draven I've used quite a bit.
I've used that method where you just go on and find name engines and do that too. But I also come up with a bunch of random ways to come up with names. Like the warlock I always tell everyone I want to play, Traxler. The way I came up with that name was the concept behind her was she was going to be a warlock who took counterspell and just Eldritch blasted people and counterspell. She was just a denial punch you in the face. And
It's funny. I'm considering that kind of character for our Battle Royale game.
right, and so I came up with the name Traxler because it's one of my favorite openings in chess, the Traxler counter. So she was the Traxler counter.
I like it.
I like
Interesting.
that. That's cool.
I say, all right. So, like I said, we can talk about D&D for hours and hours and hours. Just these two can talk about D&D for
It's
hours.
okay. I'm pretty
apart.
sure after we stop recording, we're still going to sit here for.
Yeah, we're probably going to
So,
continue talking about D&D.
But we try to consolidate this into 2 hours of maybe a little bit more than that.
Roughly
3 hours worth
215,
of content.
So do we even need to go into recommendations? Or are we
So
just going to
that was
recommend
our
D&D?
So, well, I was going to recommend for those who are starting or looking into starting, I recommended to Harrison earlier is to try some board game styles.
Mhm.
Good board games. Like I said, Castle Ravenloft is very good. It is kind of expensive though. If you can get your hand on some older board games, there's a very old, very popular game called Hero Quest.
Hero Quest,
Which is
Oh, I
very
heard that
similar.
one.
There is one DM, and people play as characters and a storyline. There's lots of maps.
Mhm.
There's also a Hero Quest clone called Dragon Strike.
which is really fun. We've played that together.
Well, I grew up with Dragon Strike.
Wasn't-
I knew
I
about
grew
that.
up on Hero Quest, and you grew up on Dragon Strike.
Wasn't there a Hero Quest style like actual D&D pen and paper game that we ran with Marshall once?
So what we did with that is we actually took the Hero Quest,
I wish we had
base,
time to talk about other systems.
the Hero Quest
More
base,
time.
and we
Wow.
used some D&D stuff. We
Mhm.
called it Dragon Quest because back in the day, a friend of ours created that on his
Yeah.
own. So we played. That's how my ex-wife got into
Yeah.
playing D&D was through our friend playing
But
Hero Quest,
I-
and then into his.
I have to go to the bathroom, but I'm going to give my recommendation real quick. If you want to get into D&D, an easy way to get into a group, go to like your local hobby shop and ask them if they run Adventure League there.
Yes.
And so you can just join in with an Adventure League. Most people who go to Adventure Leagues don't know each other. You get assigned to a group, you make a character, and if you have a problem with whatever group you get assigned with, you can talk to the other DMs or whoever's running your Adventure League and get moved around. It's an easy place to get started.
There's a beginners section of Adventure League.
Yeah.
I've never been to one, but I want to so bad.
Yeah, we should probably go to one sometime.
Should look into doing that.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, with that, I am gonna actually say talk at you later.
Can I name myself Goku?
See?
Dragon Ball GT.